Earlier this month, Magdalena Bay released their biggest studio album, Mercurial World. I was super excited to listen to this, and I've been waiting for months. Luckily for me, the album did not disappoint in the slightest. In fact, it blew all of my expectations right out of the water. I was not prepared for a fun and lighthearted duo to drop one of the best albums I have ever listened to in my life, but that's exactly what I got. As always, I'll drop the score first for those who want to hear the final thoughts and dip, and then I'll get into the explanation for the score afterwards. Mercurial World just so closely teetered on the edge of a perfect score, but due to slight nitpicks here and there, I settled on an extremely impressive 9 out of 10. For the Pragmatic Score, I wrestled heavily between giving a 4 or a 5, but after some further research into what was going on outside of the album itself, I decided to hand Magdalena Bay a 5 for this one. At a first glance, the album has plenty of song transitions featuring an intro, an outro, and an interlude. There is also a fairly obvious theme chosen for the album, as a lot of the sound design relies on digital sounds from classic retro Nintendo games. This is all great and was enough for me to solidly be prepared to grant this album a 3 or 4 for this portion, but what really ended up doing it for me was the title of the album. The word mercurial was a curious choice, so I decided to look up exactly what it meant. The definition reads, subject to sudden or unpredictable changes of mood or mind, and that is the most fitting title for this album that I could ever think of. There were constant changes from happy songs to dark songs, production ideas I never saw coming, sound design that flipped its mood and emotion throughout, and much more, all while staying true to the themes of the album and the style of Mag Bay. The final nail in the coffin for me giving this album a 5 here is how the intro and the outro work together. When you finish the outro, fittingly named The Beginning, you're immediately met with a transition that circles right back to the intro, which is ironically named The End. In doing so, you're almost given the sense of being trapped in the unorthodox journey Mag Bay presented to you, and if that isn't exactly how an album titled Mercurial World should make you feel, then I don't know what is. With the Pragmatic Score done, it's time to get into the Idealistic Score, starting with the opening track of the album. The End is the intro track of the album and serves as the transition into Mercurial World. Short and sweet, not much to say. Mercurial World was a great way to kick off the album. I wasn't sure how I would feel about it for about the first 30 seconds or so, but as soon as the chorus started, I was all in. This song was super fresh to listen to, including a mystical arrangement paired with some crazy arps and pads. If I had to list one complaint, it might be that the second chorus was lacking a little bit in punch, but that's incredibly minor. Dawning of the Season adds a little funky flair to the tracks we've heard so far, featuring an incredibly catchy drum beat and a solid bass riff. Listening to this song, I couldn't help but bounce in my chair, which means that this song definitely accomplished what it was going for. Right when I was thinking the song might be getting a little repetitive, Magvay slapped me with a nifty key change that I was not expecting. Definitely another banger entry. Without any pause, the album transitions right into the next song, Secrets, Your Fire. This was one of the 4 songs that debuted as a single before the album was released, and I was already pretty familiar with it. Something about the way the chorus was sung feels oddly emotional to me, and I'm all for it. A lot of the sound effects used in this song are sound effects in some of the older Nintendo DS games I played as a kid, so the song served as a solid nostalgia blast too. Perhaps the use of old gaming sound effects was foreshadowing as the song comes to a crashing close and You Lose kicks in. Admittedly though, this is my least favorite of the 4 songs released before the rest of the album, but in no way does that make this a bad song. I love the contrast of the light background and the delicate singing paired with the heavy dark static that plays during the chorus, definitely a neat touch. In fact, I have nothing negative to say about this song. Guess that just means I really enjoyed the other songs. Something for 2 scared me with the extremely elementary drum kit the song led off with, but my fears were quickly cast aside as the familiar bass synth kicked in, and one of the most memorable songs started. The song that followed was one of the more emotional ones for me. The harmonies that led off the chorus gave me goosebumps, and the instrumental breakdown between the second and third chorus were absolutely beautiful. Of the songs on the album, this is one of the ones that feel the most structurally complete. With yet again another transition, Mag Bay kicks into Chaeri. This song is a masterpiece and claims the award of being my favorite track on the album. As the very first track introduced to us from this album, Chaeri had my hype levels off the charts. Magdalena Bay is one of the few artists who I would have said never made a bad song in their career. However, a lot of their songs had a playful energy to it, and this song was a step into unknown territory for me. I was not expecting this level of production from a Mag Bay song, and I knew just from this song that the album was going to be at least pretty good. The way the chorus progression flips back and forth from major to minor is super creative, the vocals are stunning, the structure is just as full if not more so than Something for Two, and the bridge of this song let me feel the full powerful release of a Mag Bay song I had been waiting for. Halfway, as the title would suggest, is the interlude of the album. However, this interlude happens to have quite a bit of effort put into it, and it basically acts as its own song. So much so that it almost makes me not want to call it an interlude at all, and I wouldn't if it weren't titled and placed where it was. Hysterical Lust kicks off the back half of the album, and at this point I'm wondering if these effects are more universal than just the games I played as a kid. A lot of these effects were used in the soundtrack and sound effects of Naruto Path of the Ninja, which to this day is still one of my favorite games. With that aside, the song itself, it's great. It reminds me of a lot of Mag Bay older music, but as stated before, I don't know of a single song of theirs that is bad, so I'm more than welcoming of this track. Prophecy is a song taken straight out of a classic Disney movie, and it nails the inspiration square on the head. The use of the old 20th century strings was done very well, and it made me feel like I was watching the old black and white films again. Unfortunately for this song, I was not a huge fan of the percussion. I wish that the percussion showed some progression in the chorus instead of staying the same the entire time, and it was enough of a flaw for me that it took me out of the song a little bit. I guess the grandparents vibe was a one-time occasion, as Follow Your Leader immediately brought me back to the current century with the powerful synth work Mag Bay has always had. The decision to digitalize the vocals was an interesting one, but I personally enjoyed the variety presented by this. The song was one of the shorter ones, but it was definitely enjoyable. Domino is a track that I honestly don't know if I love it or if I think it'll fade off and just be another pretty good song. I'll have to listen to this one more, as there was a lot to take in with it. What I can say about it is that I love the approach to the sound design. It creates an eerie yet comforting feeling to it, and I was impressed by it. Dreamcatching is one of the most memorable songs on the album for me, with some great decisions made throughout it. The drum kit chosen for this song was fantastic, with one of the catchiest kick placements you can use in music. The hi-hats and ornaments used in the percussion were incredibly engaging, and not the types of percussion I've heard before, which kept me hooked. Where the song really sold itself to me was the back half into the ending. Talk about unexpected. I wish I was recording my reaction to this album because I'm pretty sure that I had the nastiest face when that drop hit. The beginning is a fitting end to the album, bringing back plenty of the classic sounds used throughout it. I was honestly surprised to see the decision to end the album came with a complete song, as it's rare to have an intro and an outro track have the same theme and not be short. The song itself is bouncy and fun as always, and let me finish the album feeling pretty happy. Just as with the Pragmatic Score, I wrestled between a 4 or a 5 for the Idealistic Score. However, unlike the Pragmatic Score, I settled on giving a 4 to this portion. The undoing of the perfect 10 was pretty simple, as giving a 5 out of 5 for the Idealistic Score is as simple as the album having every song be a song I enjoyed greatly, but this album faltered with a single song, Prophecy. As I mentioned earlier, I was really not a fan of the decision to not evolve the percussion in this song, and when I'm on the edge of giving an album a perfect score, flaws as small as that have to be noted. And with both portions out of the way, that concludes my review of Mercurial World. A bigger success than I ever could have predicted, with a 5 for the Pragmatic Score and a 4 for the Idealistic Score, netting for a total of 9 out of 10. As always, my outro is super clean and not awkward at all.